Hi, welcome to this AQA A-Level Business revision video focusing on 3.3.4, making marketing decisions. In today's video, we're going to continue our exploration into the marketing mix and we're going to focus in on price. Before we get started, just a quick reminder that my teaching here is separate from my teaching and consultation roles in any and all academies and trusts throughout the country. My name is Mr. Giles. Let's get down to business. Much like the rest of the marketing mix, a lot of pricing decisions are interdependent on what's happening in the other elements. So we've just covered product, we looked at things like the Boston Matrix, product lifecycle. The pricing decision that's made has a direct impact on those other things as well and is directly influenced. So there is no cut and dry answer as to what is the correct pricing decision. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and we'll try and cover them as we go along. Generally speaking, they're quite straightforward, but I find there are quite a few misconceptions around the explanation of some of these pricing strategies, and I'll hope to address those today. So, what are the pricing strategies? Well, let's start with number one. We're going to look at penetration pricing. This pricing strategy is very simple. It's when a product is launched, or maybe it's in its maturity phase and it's starting to die out a little bit, and the product price is reduced drastically, significantly slow. Not to be confused with a loss leader, it's not the same, but the price is dropped significantly. And the purpose of that, and here's the misconception, the purpose of that is to gain market share. It is not a profitability based tactic, it is a market share based tactic. So we bring the price down to entice customers to come and buy that product. They then buy it, hopefully they enjoy it, so that when we return back to a normal equilibrium price, they are then using it continually anyway. It's part of their life and they carry on buying it. Now, how that works is it's to do with risk. All right. When we want to try something new, or we want to change brands, or we want to move from one product to the next, there is a risk because of opportunity cost. If you don't know what opportunity cost is, go back to one of my very first videos, explain it there. But customers have finite money, they have finite resources. Therefore, the decisions that they make are based around how much money they have. So if I like Coca-Cola and I'm going to try a Pepsi, the opportunity cost is if I buy the Coca-Cola, if I try the Pepsi, I can't afford the Coca-Cola. So I can only have one or the other. Think about buying a car. Once you've bought a car, you then don't have money to buy a second car if you don't like the car you've bought. So if we reduce the price drastically, we reduce the risk being taken by the customers, and therefore that entices them to try our product more likely, and then hopefully we gain their market share. So again, this happens usually at the start of a product launch. If it's a new product that people are not so sure about, or a brand that doesn't have really good reputation, or if a product starts to kind of taper off in that maturity phase. That's penetration pricing. It is a market share based tactic. Up next, we have skimming. This one I feel like is universally taught incorrectly. So that's a bold statement. Sorry, folks. But I'm gonna try my best here. Skimming is not simply pricing very high and bringing the price down over time. Technically speaking, that would be correct, but that's not actually what it is. The word skimming is called skimming for a reason, refers to skimming customers off the top of the market. So I'm going to use my iPhone, and if I've ever taught you this, if you're one of my students listening to this, you've heard this before. I use the iPhone. When they release a new iPhone, it's £1,600, let's say. There are only so many people willing to pay £1,600, but there are people willing to pay it. So they'll skim the market of all the people who are willing to pay £1,600, and they'll make that last as long as it needs to last. Okay, so if it takes 3 months to get all those people to buy it at £1,600, that's how long they'll leave it at that price. Once the sales start falling significantly, because we've used up and dried up all those £1,600 people, they'll bring the price down to £1,300. Then we'll skim the market of those people, and that will last however long it lasts. And we'll keep skimming the market at particular price points right up until we get down to the bottom possible price. So let's say it takes £500 to make a phone, £600 would be the possible price. And we'll just keep skimming the market. Now, here's the thing. We know that everybody who would buy an iPhone would buy it for £600. So why doesn't Apple just come straight out the gate, charge £600 and get unbelievable demand and sell bucket loads of iPhones? Because there are so many people who would be willing to pay £1,600, £1,400, £1,200, £1,000, so on and so forth. So we skim the market at every price point. What I want you to think about is ice cream, okay? A tub of ice cream. You skim off the top of the tub of the ice cream, okay? You take off the top. You don't dig down to the sides. You don't go to the bottom. You use your spoon and you scrape it along the top. Why? Because it's the softest part. The stuff at the bottom is still really hard. Okay, it's still very frozen. Whereas the stuff at the top is starting to loosen up a little bit, isn't it? It's starting to warm up and go a bit soft and sweet. So that's why you skim off the top and you eat from the top down. It's the same with skimming. It's the same analogy. So we start the price high and we bring it down. This is a revenue maximizing strategy, not market share maximizing, revenue maximizing, because you are deliberately pricing people out of the market, but you are making maximum revenue at every price point. That's skimming. Up next, we have cost plus pricing. This is a widely used pricing strategy, and it's pretty straightforward, to be fair. You take the cost of the product and then you simply add what's called a markup. So it's usually a percentage on top of that price. And what it does is it gives you wiggle room with your customers. So if you've ever been abroad to like a market somewhere and you're buying, dodgy fake Gucci jumpers off of some geezer out of a trolley or something, all right, and he'll go, oh, it's £100, and then you go, nah, I'll give you a fiver. He'll act all offended, and you'll meet somewhere in the middle, maybe 50 quid. So you've gone from £100 down to £50. Where's this person lost £50 out of it? Well, maybe that jumper cost them £20 and they've chucked on a massive markup of 80 quid. All right. That's cost plus pricing. It's found most prevalently in the car industry. So if you've ever bought a new car, or if you're, sorry, not you guys, if your family have ever bought a new car and you haven't haggled for the price, you're going wrong somewhere, because the person sitting the other side of the counter who's selling you a car has wiggle room. Now, obviously, their job is to sell you it at the maximum possible price. But if you walk in knowing exactly how much you're willing to spend on that car, and it's different from the sticker price, there is wiggle room. There is negotiation to be had there. Ask any of your teachers about buying a new car. They've all got a story. I've got wicked stories of buying new cars where I've chopped off tens of thousands of pounds of discounts and various other bits and pieces, right? They can do it because they've taken the cost of the car and sometimes they've added even a 100% markup. Okay, so there's cost plus pricing. You take the cost, and you add a percentage to create the price. And then you can chop off or add to that markup as and when you want. Lastly is dynamic pricing. It's probably one of the most important ones, especially in this day and age, because dynamic pricing is a demand and supply based pricing strategy. Now, it's made very famous by Uber because they called it surge pricing. But essentially, what happens is the price is determined by the supply in the market of the actual goods and services and then the demand from the customers. All right. So, a really good example of dynamic pricing that isn't Uber would be the brand Supreme. I'm old enough to remember them. Hopefully, you're old enough to remember them. I'm old enough to remember when they hit the scene and it was something ridiculous like £100 for a t-shirt. Just plain white t-shirt with that horrible logo on it, £100. Why? Because demand was really, really high. People really, really wanted it. So they whacked the price really high. As far as I'm aware now, Supreme is like dead in the water. No one really cares. And their stuff isn't super expensive because the demand isn't there. Dynamic pricing. Now, dynamic pricing happens most often on the internet because it can track supply and demand in real time. So a really good example is things like airplane seats. So EasyJet or Jet2 holidays. That's a meme right now. If you're watching this 10 years in the future, don't worry about it. You missed a thing. But if we think about holidays, the seats on a plane rapidly get more expensive as they run out. So if you try and book a plane a year in advance, the price will probably be the lowest it will ever be. If you try and book a plane seat the day before it's going, and there just so happens to be one left, it's probably really expensive. Now, it used to be back in the day, you could rock up to Gatwick and walk up to a desk and go, what seats you got left? And they'd try and sell it to you at a bit of a discount because they want to fill that seat. I don't know if that's still the case now, but what I can tell you is that if you go on EasyJet the week before a holiday is going, it's the most expensive the flights will ever be. Okay, dynamic pricing, supply and demand. So each of these pricing strategies has a time and a place that is appropriate for them. Okay, and they're an appropriate product, for example. So let me just give you some examples here. With penetration pricing, it's highly unlikely we're going to be using that for some sort of new technology. The latest PlayStation isn't going to be coming out dirt cheap. It's probably going to be used skimming because it knows that people are eager to get their hands on it. And your Louis Vuitton handbag probably isn't going to be using penetration pricing, but it probably would use skimming because, again, demand in the market would be higher. People are willing to pay a lot to get their hands on it first. So this one's to do with exclusivity. This one's to do with reducing the risk. Cost plus pricing, the examples I gave you there were like car manufacturers. That's a really good example. But it could just be as simple as clothes. So Next, M&S, places like that, taking the price of each piece and adding a markup. And then dynamic pricing happens mostly on the internet. So if it's something that they can track the amount of traffic happening, prices can change. Let me give you a really good example of that. Assuming we've got some time in this video, is if you were to look at the price of an EasyJet flight today, not buy it, and then looked again tomorrow, it would go up. And you would naturally just think it's because the plane's getting filled up. If you asked then your friend who lived in a different house to look at the same ticket, but for the first time in the next day, they would have the price that you would have got the first time you looked, because there are cookies on your computer that track how many times you look at that. And every time you look at it, EasyJet know you're getting closer to booking it. So they whack the price up to create urgency. Dynamic pricing. Those are the main pricing strategies. There are a few others floating around, things like predator pricing, economy pricing, premium pricing. So let's have a little look at those real quick in the next phase. Okay, so these are what I would call the secondary pricing strategies. It's highly unlikely you're going to get asked questions about them, but it's handy to have them in your back pocket anyway. So let's look at predator pricing. So predator pricing is when a business deliberately goes after another business, and every time the competitor puts their prices down, the original business will put their prices down even more. This was very prevalent in the 90s with supermarkets. Asda went after everybody, and they made a point of telling people, and you might remember some of these, where they were actually having adverts on TV, and it was just a kind of plain white background, as a person standing there, and they were like, oh, your shop at Tesco cost this much money this week, as it only cost this much. And they were really going after the other supermarkets and showing how much more cheaper they were. That's predator pricing. The problem with that is it's actually seen as quite unethical, and it doesn't really benefit anybody, because unless you put that other competitor out of business, all you're really doing is messing with everybody's revenue, and then the customer gets the best possible deal. Another example of that was in the 90s, 1990s, was Esso Price Watch. So Esso is a petrol station, and what they were doing, they were saying, look, if you go to another petrol station and you find it cheaper, come to us, tell us, we'll match it and give you 5p off. Now, in the 1990s, petrol wasn't all that expensive, and we didn't have the internet or iPhones. So you couldn't show someone a picture of it. No one had a camera. So you would just go in and go, oh yeah, you know, the BP garage down the road is 5p cheaper. And the poor sod behind the counter would go, oh, okay. And they'd match that price. But Esso were really trying to go after people, because when it comes to petrol, most people buy via convenience of location rather than price. And Esso were trying to undo that. So those are predatory pricing examples. It's rare, but it does still happen. Up next, we have economy pricing. Economy pricing is very simply, it's when you are just cheap. My favorite example of that is Poundland, which apparently sadly is going out of business soon. But Poundland's a great economical price business, because you know you're going to get good deals in there. Now, ironically, not everything in there is a pound. We know those days are gone, but there used to be pound shops, didn't there, many years ago? And that's just economy pricing. It's just cheap. You know it's basically. You know it's not the best quality stuff, but it's just cheap. And that serves a whole sector of the market who are low income mass market. And it's great for them. So it's a good pricing strategy. And then lastly, we have premium pricing, which is obvious. This is your Ferraris. This is, I think I mentioned earlier, but you know, your Louis Vuitton, your Gucci, stuff like this. Okay, your Ralph Lauren. These people. They're just expensive. They're never going to be cheap, regardless of the quality either. Talk about Ralph Lauren. It's one of my favorite brands, and I do wear them quite often. But I must admit, it's not the best quality stuff I own. It's just expensive. But with that comes the prestige, doesn't it? You have the little horse in your chest. Everyone's like, oh, this guy likes polo, apparently. And then they think you've got money. Okay, so there's something to be said about that premium pricing strategy. It's very good for creating that prestige, that brand. So it does work. However, again, you are deliberately pricing people out of the market. So you have to be very careful that the brand can survive that you can actually generate enough revenue and sell enough products. So those are the 3 secondary pricing strategies. If you find any more, you have any more that I haven't covered in this video, because there are tons and tons, whack them in the comments below and I'll answer the questions as quickly as possible. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.